OUPES, ALPS, OUPES, OPUS. Actually, I did reach out to the folks here at OPUS, and they said that's how they pronounce the brand, OPUS. So this is the Mega 2 power station. Now, I did previously review the Mega 3, and we just recently did a giveaway on that. And fantastic power station. So OPUS has really upped their game in the portable power station business. I'm really impressed with the new Mega line that they've come out with. So they have a Mega 2, a Mega 3, and a Mega 5, I believe. And so Mega 5 is really more geared toward like portable home modular backup system. I have not gotten my hand on that product, but today we're going to take a look at the Mega 2, and this does have some very impressive specs. Now we're going to get to the testing here shortly and check out all the specs and make sure we cover this thing in detail so you know what this thing actually is. But the basic thing to be aware of right now is it's a 2048 watt-hour power station. That's its battery capacity. And the AC inverter is rated for 2500 watts continuous. And it does have some very good connectors on it and some other things that we'll get into, as I said, here in due time. Let's get this thing out of the box and see what it ships with when it arrives. So one user guide. This is actually very much like the one that comes with the Mega 3. And it does have app control, by the way, mobile app control. Again, that's something we'll probably take a look at here. And the warranty card says that it has a 3-year warranty, which is a nice improvement to this sort of industry standard 2-year warranty. And some brands, a few, are now starting to move to a 4- and 5-year warranty. So this is kind of right in the middle of that. Let's see what we get in the cables here. It does have a very large AC cable, and it does have kind of this interesting, not all that common arrangement for the prongs. They're all sort of horizontal instead of the 2 verticals in the ground. So 3 slotted prongs all in the same kind of horizontal orientation. So just be aware that this is not the same kind of cable you would use with, say, a computer, like a desktop computer. It's a little bit different. All right, so it's got it does have an Anderson output, a 12 volt, 30 amp Anderson output. That is a fairly recent trend. More power stations are doing that. OPUS is no exception. They're doing that on all their Mega 3 lines, which is really nice. You can use this it's a DC output, not AC output. And you can use this to output up to 30 amps of current. So this, I'm assuming, is like a DC 7909 probably adapter, so that you can hook this to something that takes a DC 7909 with an Anderson connector. And then it looks like they give you a Anderson extension cable. Again, these are all really nice heavy gauge cables. And then they give you an MC4 to Anderson. Now this is going to be for the solar charging, obviously. So be aware that they're using an Anderson connector for both the AC out or the DC output, 30 amp port on the front, and probably on the side they have the Anderson solar input, and those are 2 separate ports with very different functions. Do not confuse those. In other words, do not plug the solar input into the 30 amp output. That was a mistake that I made, a big oops, in the Mega 3 video. So don't do that. That will not turn out well. And then you've got also a car charging cable that goes to an Anderson connector as well. So they give you plenty of cables in the box. Let's go ahead and get the thing out and get a quick look at it. All right, so this is the Mega 2 right here. For a power station this size, to have a nice RV30 or TT30 connector, it does say 30 amps max. So if we can actually get 30 amps out of that, that'd be very cool. And then your DC outputs here, all your USB and Type-C ports. It does look like it has 2 Type-C PD100s, so those are great for charging MacBook Pros, Microsoft Surface laptops, any more modern laptops that do take Type-C charging. This is an excellent port for that. And then this is that Anderson 12 volt 30 amp output that I mentioned. And then you've got 4 Type A quick charge 3.0. So I think those are usually 18 watt outputs. So pretty good fast charge for a cell phone. I do not think it has wireless charging on top as far as I can tell. And then you got 4 20 amp 3-prong AC ports down here up front. And then you've got your standard car accessory socket over here, 12 volt 10 amp. And a couple of DC 55 21s or 25s, I'm not sure. Again, I'll have to clarify that if I need to. On the side here, there is a port that looks like for battery expansion. So there are battery expansion modules for this, and this is where you would connect those. All right, nothing on the back, no lamps or anything, just some badging. So no like accessory lights on this unit, but it's got an Anderson port for your solar input. Again, not this one. I'm just reiterating this because I definitely made that mistake, and you do not want to make that mistake. So this is not the solar input. This is the output. The solar input is over here. And this thing can handle, again, I'll have to go through the details, but a significant amount of solar. We'll get into those details here in due time. And there's your AC connector, and then you got a little reset, breaker reset down there for if you have an overload trip. All right, so that is about it for now. Let me go ahead and get this thing on the bench, start running it through the usual battery of tests. Such a bad joke. All right, and we'll check back and see how it all comes out. All right, we are going to do a usable capacity discharge test out of the DC ports. I already got one test running here. Since I do have a 30 amp output over here, I can't get 30 amps out with this tester, but I do have it set to 12 amps right now, I think, which is the most my tester is going to let me do. So let me go ahead and start that. And these are both going to count up, and we're going to add up the watt hours we're able to get out of this before it runs all the way down. So I've got one tester pulling out of the 12 volt 10 amp, and I am pulling a full 10 amps continuous, and the other one is pulling 12 amps out of the 30 amp port. So we'll check back when it's all the way depleted and find out how many watt hours we actually get out of that DC output. All right, real quick, just came back in here to check on the status, and we are almost done. Showing 0% state of charge. We're still pulling power, so it's going to shut off any time, but I want to point it out here, we're still pulling 12 volts out of that port, even at almost 0% state of charge. So definitely a 12 volt regulated port, so that's quite good. But I'll wait for the thing to finally shut down before we actually take the final numbers. All right, I just caught the fans shutting down. This thing actually ran for a good 10 or 12 minutes after that previous clip, even though it was showing 0 state of charge. But let's see how we did here. We got to add up the watt hours on both of these units. All right, as you can see on the tester on the left, I got 919.4 watt hours, and the tester on the right registered 778.36 watt hours. So if I add those together, I get 1697, actually almost 1698. And let's divide that by the rated 2048 watt hours. That will give us a usable DC capacity number of 82.8% or 83%. So that is right in the middle of the pack of average for DC usable capacity versus the rated output. All right, let me get this thing charged up and we'll run a usable capacity test through the AC inverter. Time to do an AC discharge capacity test. Now I got it fully recharged here at 100%. Now because these 120 outlets are actually flipped upside down with the ground on top, which is typical for these Mega Series, we're going to go ahead and use a little extension cable here. But let me go ahead and turn on the AC inverter. And we are pulling 120 volts. So these are 120 volt, 20 amp outlets. So that's excellent. All right, let me go ahead and put a load on this. This is going to be just under 700 watts. And we are going to let that run until this thing shuts us down. And we will log the watt hours, find out how many watt hours we can actually get through the AC inverter off this Mega 2. Okay, it looks like our usable capacity test, the AC inverter, is done. Let's connect the meter here up to power so we can see what we got. All right, so we got 1,850 watt hours out of a rated 2048. So that would give us a little over 90% of usable capacity through the AC inverter, which is a solidly above average number. So like the Mega 3, the Mega 2 is a very good performer, especially on the AC usable capacity test. All right, I had just kicked on a little space heater, and I have solar going in right now, but the space heater is going to far outstrip the solar in very short order here since we are late evening or late afternoon. So in a matter of a couple hours, the space heater is going to keep chugging away and the solar is going to go away completely, and we are going to fully deplete this thing overnight. So the fun part will be to come back in the morning and let's see if we're able to get any solar charge in the morning automatically without having to wake this thing up somehow, and see if it automatically resumes charging itself based on solar. Now I can already tell, since this is an electronic AC inverter switch, the AC inverter is not going to come back on by itself. That's not typically a feature you see on these portable solar panels. So we already know that. But let's find out if it will start auto charging itself off solar from a 0% state of charge in the morning when the sun comes up. See you in the morning. All right. It is not early morning. It is almost noon, actually. Got tied up on some stuff, but we can see we got pretty clear skies. Let's see how we're doing. I know that with that little space heater running, the Mega 2 should be have been run down to 0. Let's find out if it has recovered and begun charging. Turn some lights on. I can hear it running. That's a good sign. The AC inverter is off, as we would have expected. Wow, okay, we're at 77% already. And we're pulling in 651 watts off that 800 watt array. So, yeah. Definitely passes the solar charge test. All right, here are 2 of these 240 watt foldable solar panels from OUPES. And these, as you can see, are 4 panel designs, 240 watt each. They are, I think, 19.8 volts open circuit, so call it 20 volts. So if you put 2 of these in series, you're going to have a 40 volt series string. These solar panels actually have a DC 7909 connector, not an Anderson connector. So you do need an adapter to go from DC 7909 to get you to Anderson somehow. But look how long this cable is. This cable is easily 12 to 15 feet long. Actually, probably 4 meters long. This is one of the longest cables that I have seen on a portable solar panel. So I really like the fact that if you're in conditions where it's especially hot, you might want to locate the Mega 2 out of the sun, where obviously you need the solar panels in the sun. So today it's actually not hot out, it's actually quite cold. It's 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So I wanted to keep this kind of in the sun with the solar panels. But yeah, if you buy the solar panels from OUPES as a set, they will give you these MC4 to DC 7909 female connectors here to adapt to MC4. All right, so I've got these adapted to MC4. Now to string these in series, all you've got to do is take the positive from one, connect it to the negative of the other. And that leaves you an open section here. Now I could get my multimeter out. I'm not going to do this right now. But this will give me a combined, since it's 20 volts each panel, just about 40 volts coming out across these positive and negative connectors. Now I need to adapt this to Anderson. That's where this other cable comes into play. So I'm going to put these together here, and that will give me about 40 volts coming out of this Anderson connector. So that 40 volts will be well within the, actually it's 12 to 150 volts range on that charge controller. We're at 370 watts. I think the highest I saw that was about 376 watts just a little while ago. And that would put that at about just like 78, 79% of rated capacity, rated output, which is actually pretty decent for this time of year. But let's let it sit there for an hour or two and see how we do. All right, it is actually been just under 2 hours, maybe hour and a half really, but you can see we're getting a lot of shadow. I mean, we're starting to get some low sun's long shadow here from one panel on the other, and we are also getting some wispy sort of leafless branch. If you can make it through there, the sun is right through that tree. So yeah, we're not getting full sun on the panels anymore, which is dramatically affecting input, I'm sure. But let's see how we did. Yeah, we're only pulling in 44 watts now, but we did go from 69% to 85% in that approximately hour and a half. And I'm guessing over the last 20 to 30 minutes, we really haven't been getting much. So yeah, call it about 15% gain in that 1 hour. So that's not bad at all. And yeah, so these OUPES 240 watt solar panels seem to be pretty decent. All right, let's test how noisy or clean the power is we're getting out of this AC inverter. And this is kind of an important test if you're somebody, especially who wants to be able to power remote PAs or guitar amps or something like that. And you don't want a lot of noisy buzz coming out of your power supply. So to do that, we're going to get a baseline here. I'm going to plug this in to a grid power, and we're going to turn it on and get a baseline and find out how noisy this amp is just on grid power. So here we go. All right, so just a slight hum. All right, now let's repeat the test coming out of the AC inverter on the Mega 2. All right, AC inverter is on. Now I'm going to boost it by the same amount so you can hear if it's making any extra noise or not. So let's try it. All right, that's pretty clean. It doesn't really sound any different to me standing right in front of it. So I would say that it passes the PA or amp test. All right, let's find out if UPS mode actually works as billed on the Mega 2. So I've got grid power connected here. So we are connected to grid power, got the AC inverter on. It is powering the laptop. So we're passing through power right now over to my sacrificial laptop. Now the battery is removed from this, so it will shut down immediately if there's any disruption to the power supply. So let's simulate a power outage by pulling grid power and seeing if we get any disruption in the laptop at all. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right, no disruption in power on the laptop. And just to show you that there's no trickery going on here, let me try unplugging and replugging as fast as I can. And you can see the laptop did not tolerate that at all. It shut down immediately. So UPS mode confirmed. All right, let's do some load testing on this Mega 2. It does have a pretty substantial 2500 watt AC inverter here, rated for 2500 watts continuous output. And that is a large inverter for a 2048 watt hour power station. Now I've got a bunch of stuff connected to this. Let me go ahead and turn on the AC inverter. And I've already got at least one space heater that's going to kick on right here. I'm going to add load here, but you can see we are outputting 120 volts still. So that's very good. Now, so I am slowly ramping up here with some other devices. Let me turn this one on. And we're going to see if we can get this thing to 2500 watts or very close to it and run it for 10 minutes. This is going to push it right up, probably a little bit over. All right, so a little bit over 2500 watts. Let's run this for 10 minutes and see if it lasts. Nope. We got about 30 seconds. We got an E001 error. So we did trip the overload protection at just about, I think, 28 or so, 27, 28 watts over that 2500 watt rated. So let's see if we can get that to just below 2500 watts, because I don't think I can dial in it exactly. So I'll find some combination here and we'll try that test again. All right, let's try 2400 watts. That's about as close as I can get this to 2500 watts. Let's see if it'll run for 10 minutes. All right, we passed our 10-minute test. Let's go ahead and shut the AC inverter off here. Now that 60 decibel number that I recorded on here as the peak volume, or 61, 62 decibels, that was not exclusively the Mega 2. So it's a little bit quieter than it would appear based on that measurement. But I did have this fan also running, and then the fan on the power station that was charging off of this just out of shot. So there were other fans going that were generating, contributing to that number. So we're in the upper 50s for sure on maximum fan speed on this. But it does pass at least 2400 and, what was it, 20 watts or so. And it did trip the overload at just over 2500 watts. I think 25, 27.
Yeah, 220, 221, whatever it takes.
And we tripped the overload. So there's not really much headroom in here. And I think you should probably expect that 2500 watts continuous output is a hard cap and is enforced by the overload protection on this unit, which is actually a good thing. So I would say that the Mega 2 is a solid performer here in the AC inverter load test. And let's see what else we can do. All right, let's find out if the Mega 2 can dual charge off both solar and AC at the same time. This is something that a lot of people ask about. Not something that I would personally do or expect to do very often. So let's just find out what we get off of AC by itself. So you can see we've sort of stabilized in that mid 1500 range, maybe 1600 watts total or at peak through the AC inverter or on off-grid power right now. So I'm going to use my little multi-headed MC4 connector here. I do have my 800 watt array turned on. So let me go ahead and plug that in and see if that number jumps by a noticeable amount. We do have pretty sunny skies, so let's just see. Yeah, we are definitely dual charging now. I would be surprised if we don't get that to well over 1800 watts total, given the current conditions. And there we are. It'll probably continue to climb somewhat. I'm not really quite sure what we'll cap out at in my particular configuration. But yes, this does confirm dual charging with both solar and AC at the same time. Hey, so if you're finding anything useful in the video that I've shared so far, please consider helping me out by clicking that like button. I'd very much appreciate that. Okay, so much like the Mega 3, the Mega 2 is also a very strong performer and definitely lives up to its specs. And I think that kind of what differentiates this Mega 2 from most other units in this 2000 watt hour capacity class is that big 2500 watt AC inverter, something that you're more likely to find in a much higher capacity and more expensive power station. And like all power stations, you do need to take care not to leave that AC inverter running when you're not using it, because it will drain the battery on you, and typically the bigger the inverter, the more no-load power it's going to consume. And on this particular 2500 watt inverter, that equates to about 2.5% of the Mega 2's overall battery capacity per hour, or about 45 watts continuous. And that's a lot. But thankfully, there's a configurable auto shutoff option that you can set in the mobile app. Now, by default, if there's no load detected for a full 12 hours, it'll shut itself down automatically. But you can shorten that interval if you want, or you can disable it entirely if you prefer, and you can configure those behaviors separately for the AC and DC outputs independently, which is kind of a nice feature. Now that said, even if you did leave it on the default auto shutoff at 12 hours, this Mega 2 actually did easily pass my 24-hour DC fridge test. I actually ran it quite a bit longer than that, but it kept that fridge powered up even with the compressor not kicking on for many hours at a time. It didn't auto shut itself down. Now, some other standout features on this Mega 2 would be the 12 volt 30 amp DC output, which is pretty handy when you want to power larger DC appliances than just a small DC fridge. And then also that TT30 or that RV30 AC outlet receptacle for direct connecting your camper or RV. Again, these are not features you often see on a 2000 watt hour power station. They're much more commonly found on 3000 watt hour capacity class type power stations. So what's missing? Well, you don't get wireless phone charging and, well, there's no integrated LED lighting. But I'm guessing those aren't things that many people are going to miss a whole lot. Okay, let's talk about pricing. And keep in mind that pricing, especially promotional pricing, can and does change frequently, but right now the Mega 2 is listed on Amazon US for $12.99, but it also has a 5% off coupon that you can click on, and that brings the final price down to $12.34. Or you can get the same deal direct from OUPES.com if you use the discount code RERAY. And either way, that breaks down to about 60 cents per watt hour, which is actually a very competitive price when you consider that the unit has pretty much all of the advanced features that you might be wanting. Things like UPS mode, battery expansion up to 10 kilowatt hours. Like I said, that 12 volt 30 amp DC output, the RV30 AC output, and let's not forget the ability to take in a massive 2100 watts of solar input. Per usual, you can find links to both of the purchasing options in the video description below if you want to go have a look for yourself. So much like my final assessment on the Mega 3, OUPES has really been bringing their A game with this new Mega series of power stations. And I think that this Mega 2 is an extremely solid option worth considering if you're looking to start with something in that 2000 watt hour capacity range, and also maybe want something a little bigger than the typical 2000 watt AC inverter that you'd normally get in that size of power station. Okay, I think that's a wrap. I do thank you for joining me for this video. And again, if you did find anything useful, really would appreciate you clicking that like button. I do hope you'll consider joining me for the next one. And until then, have fun out there.